was also funny. I noticed that like guys in my high school who had previously like jokingly flirted with me stopped doing that after I transitioned. I think because maybe like once you transition, it kind of makes it like real in a way where like
Yeah.
beforehand you're just like the effeminate kid who like guys are kind of like jokingly being gay with. And then after you transition, they're like, oh, if I jokingly be gay with you, people are going to think I'm actually interested in you.
What would you have done otherwise? Like, did you have a dream?
Not really. I mean, I grew up poor. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so there was never like a big expectation in my family that I would do one thing or another. And I'd never really had like a lot of guidance in those things. And so, I went to college, but
What did you go for?
I got a degree in business administration, which, I had no idea what I was going to do when I enrolled in college. I went to the first school that would give me a full ride, and I was terrified of going into debt, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I said, all right, I'll take a degree that probably can be applicable with whatever I'm doing. And so I got kind of not the most useful degree, but of course, like every degree, everyone who goes through college goes through with the benefit of hindsight. And I think can then look back and be like, oh, with what I'm doing now, it would have been better if I got, X degree instead. So, I think it's probably fine, but I think if I were to go back, I'd probably do like physics or math or something.
Yeah. Are you a big like math girly?
Wow, I guess we're really going back to childhood. Yeah, growing up, I think I was always perceived that way. There's a funny anecdote, which is that all of my school counselors in like middle and high school, they always told me like, oh, you're going into engineering or math or something, just based on your test scores. Like that's obviously where you're going to go to. And I was like in triple advanced math or something. Like I had to leave my grade to take the highest level math of the grade above me because my grade just like didn't have high enough level math. And so I would like leave like lunch early to like go to the grade above me's math class. So I think there is a perception from like counselors and people around me that I would just like obviously go into that. And then as soon as I transitioned, the narrative kind of changed. And I remember counselors being like, oh, you could really like, you could go into humanities or do whatever. And that was very funny to me because nothing about my scores had changed. It was like just that I had changed my appearance. And suddenly people were like, you could do whatever. You don't have to go into engineering. But yeah, I think that
that is really interesting. Just like, how visibly they changed, like you getting to live both of those experiences. I guess I'm curious, were there any other major changes that you noticed socially, I guess? And would you consider that like a social change when you started transitioning? Because you said you started 14, 15, which means you were still in high school.
Yeah, well, I transitioned. I was wearing women's clothing for like most of high school. I think I transitioned halfway through my sophomore year. And so I definitely noticed changes. Some like that, which like are funny and like very much speak to the fact that women are kind of dissuaded from certain roles or men are sort of persuaded into entering certain roles in society. It was also funny. I noticed that like guys in my high school who had previously like jokingly flirted with me stopped doing that after I transitioned. I think because maybe like once you transition, it kind of makes it like real in a way where like beforehand you're just like the effeminate kid who like guys are kind of like jokingly being gay with. And then after you transition, they're like, oh, if I jokingly be gay with you, people are going to think I'm actually interested in you. So you get like lots of funny stuff like that. I will say in general, I didn't get like bullied or anything. I got like socially ostracized. Like people started not interacting with me as much. Like I had a really close friend who I'm still very close with to this day, but I told him that I was trans over text. It was like winter break. And he was someone who I had been friends with for years, like friends with in middle school, one of the people that I was closest to in the world. And he just responded with like a dot, like a single period. And I like left that for a little bit. I maybe like followed up a day later and I was like, hey, like what's going on? And he just did not respond. And I didn't interact with him, I think for like months after that. And then kind of all of the sudden he was back to being my friends. So it definitely took people a little while, and some people more than others. I'm very lucky that he's now like, he continues to be a very close friend of mine. But yeah, that was definitely the experience to some degree with, I think most people, was that it took them a little while and fewer people came back. Or I had fewer friends after than I went into it with.
Yeah. I want to ask where to get like context for like if you're in like an urban area or like a rural area or like, but I don't want to like.
It was a more rural area, yeah.
Okay, I don't want to like ask you to like dox yourself or anything.
I appreciate it.
Interesting. Given that you're in a more rural area, how did the school react to it? Or like, I guess, what were the adult reactions? Like you mentioned the guidance counselors, but I'm curious if like your teachers were good or like all the other facets of like a life as a young individual who doesn't have legal rights as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, when I came out to my parents, it was before Caitlyn Jenner came out. It was before a lot of people knew what trans was. I told
Oh,
my mom
wow.
that I was trans, and she looked at me for a few seconds with this kind of puzzled expression. And she was just like, but darling, you don't have both parts. And I had to explain to her that intersex and trans were different things. And that was just a time before anyone really knew what being trans was. And so in this little rural community after I came out, my mother had lots of experiences where parents would come up and talk to her about it. People that she like didn't even know because they had heard. And I was the first person to come out as trans, as far as I know, ever at my high school. And so it was a totally new thing that people were just not prepared for. And that experience of being so alien in an environment that has just never dealt with someone like you before forced me, I think, to get very good at making my identity and existence compatible with people who did not understand and were coming into it with a negative perception.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?